Here's one of the things that I think that makes Kundalini Yoga so effective. Basically, we know about the psychology of the human mind is like, or we call it the brain or the thinking mind, because I think about the mind as like the universal intelligence. And then you have some part of you that can choose to align with that or to just walk around talking to yourself, which doesn't necessarily align with that. It could. It has the potential to serve a connection to the universal, but it can also isolate you. You know, there are people like that walking around talking to themselves for 30, 40 years, and none of what they're saying is of any use, and it creates all kinds of neuroses. They can't connect with other people as a result. So thinking is a great gift, the ability to think, but when you're consumed by thought or controlled by thought, then it can have all kinds of implications and physical issues, etc. So basically, the whole purpose of Kundalini Yoga and why it's effective is that it's incredibly effective at cleaning the mind. Okay? And there are many practices, many yogic techniques that you can do. And when I say yogic techniques, that means it could be Qigong, Tai Chi, because they resemble yogic techniques, this clearing of the mind, this settling of the mind into silence. So there's a lot of ways to access it. But Kundalini Yoga is incredibly effective because you don't have to be able to do, you don't have to be able to stand on your head for 5 minutes. Not everybody can do that, or maybe they have to spend a long time learning to do it. But everybody has a breath, and everybody has a body, and everybody has a mind. That's pretty much what you need to work with it. And so basically, you have this huge part of this thinking mind that you're experiencing called the subconscious mind. And there are two other parts of the mind which are very small. I mean, I'm not talking about anatomy, like where's your elbow, but the way that, if we could describe it like this will make sense. So the subconscious mind is this vast space, and it gets filled with all sorts of things. They say in the yogic teachings that you have 1,000 thoughts per minute. That's why they call the crown chakra the 1,000-petaled lotus. The 1,000-petaled lotus is basically like scanning the universal thought field. Like maybe you've had an experience where you're thinking something, somebody else is thinking it, you say it, they say, oh my God, I was just thinking that. Why does that happen? Well, it happens because we're all connected to a universal thought field. We're constantly influencing each other, right? And so this subconscious mind is scanning the universal thought field. That's how we're influencing each other. So it's being dumped in with thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of thoughts per day. And then you may grab on to one of those thoughts. And then that thought may become a feeling, or that thought may become an emotion, or that thought may become a desire. If you don't act on those feelings or emotion or desire, then where does the thought go? Well, it goes back into the subconscious mind. And it's filled with all kinds of things. And some of those things are even from your ancestry. Some of those things are from the culture you live in. Some of those things are, from whatever you're experiencing. You just think about how you can pull things. Like even having a child, there's like songs that I sung as a kid that before I had a child, I didn't remember that. And I can just like pull them out of the subconscious mind. They're there. But if it gets too full, which happens, and you're not doing any kind of practice to clear and keep space there, just like we do with electronics and computers and that kind of thing, well, what happens is if it's not processed, it starts to fill into the other areas. It starts to go into the unconscious mind. It starts to go into the conscious mind. Well, the unconscious mind is where all of your autonomic functions happen in the body. Most of what's happening in the body is that. You're not sitting there beating your heart. You're not sitting there making your liver work. You're not sitting there thinking about, okay, kidneys, now do this. All of those things happen on their own. But if the subconscious mind is constantly processing, not being cleared, it starts to overload the unconscious mind, and then things show up in the physical body. So say you have unprocessed anger issues and your mind is filled with resentment, it may show up in the liver. Say you have, depression issues and you're not doing anything to deal with those depression issues, you may start to overeat. And if you overeat enough, you may contract diabetes. And it's all coming from a mind that's too busy. So the most important thing that you do every day is clear the subconscious mind. And it also shows up in the way that you behave too, in the conscious mind. It's influencing the way, let's say that I'm an anxious person and I'm anxious all the time and I'm not doing anything about that anxiety. Well, how am I going to respond to people when I'm in relationship with them? Well, I'll probably be really quick to react. So if we can get ourselves into a state where we're really clear, we have the capacity to be clear in relationship to what's happening, the body will physically function better, and how we are in relationship to ourselves and others will be better. So Kundalini Yoga, we're putting stress on the body. We're doing things like holding the arms up. We're moving with a powerful breath. And while we're doing it, your mind is going to tell you all sorts of stories about it. It's too hard. How much longer are we going to be doing this? This is stupid. I mean, you're going to go through this whole trip and your tendencies are going to show up, let's say that you are a person who is more on the depressed side, or you've got a lot of earth and water in the way that you're experiencing life. Because remember, we're earthlings first and foremost, more than our belief systems and genders and all of these things. So let's say you've got a lot of earth and water in the body. Well, earth and water makes mud, right? So if you have a lot of mud, then how do you move? Well, you move slow. And then let's say I'm saying to you, okay, we're going to do this exercise where you're going to move the body like this, really fast. Well, let's say you get 2 minutes in and you start thinking, oh my God, this is taking so long. If you have too much mud, what are you going to do? You'll quit and think, I can't do this. And, so the way that you're creating harmony in the body is you go, yeah, I know this is hard. Just keep up. Follow the breath. Go past that point of, I got to stop. And then you're starting to correct not only your mental tendencies, but also with the breathing and the movement, you're starting to clear space in the body through the breathing. Just like martial arts or Qigong, you're making space. Well, let's say you're doing some challenging exercise and, it's really fast and rigorous. And I say to you, just relax your brain while you do it. Just relax your brain. Try and move the brain into a state of ease like you're sleeping while you're moving. What's going to happen while you're doing that? You're going to be talking to yourself the whole time. And you're going to keep forgetting to breathe. And you have to be reminded, are you thinking or breathing? Are you thinking or breathing? And you have to keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back. So you're creating a space where there's more clarity or light. And I found that you can access those same experiences in the Hatha Yoga, but the challenge in Hatha Yoga is you've got to hold the posture for a long time, which is challenging, especially if it's hard. And you have to close the eyes and breathe deeply and stay there for a long time. Because what you want to do is you want to strengthen the nervous system. So where are you strengthening the nervous system? Well, you're doing this. You're doing something challenging. The body may feel like it can't do it. It may start to shake. It may set off an alarm that there's danger. Well, there isn't danger. Holding your arms up, you may think, oh, I'm going to die. Your mind will tell you that. You won't die. You can keep your arms up. You're strong enough. You hear the stories about the people who have an adrenaline rush and lift the car up. Your body is really strong, and the only reason it's not behaving in a strong way usually is because there's some kind of mental disconnect. And then if the mental disconnect goes on and on and on, the body becomes weaker and weaker. But if you can clear the mind, the body, that's the easy part. The mind, that's the tough part. So we use these repetitive exercises and we use a mantra so that you're able to keep a point of focus. Because if I just said, put your arms up in the air and breathe however you want for 11 minutes, most people couldn't do that, including myself. Why? Well, the body's strong enough. What takes over? Your thoughts, So what if you take a sound, a vibration, like a secret code, of a language that was designed, like a Gurmukhi language. The language of Gurmukhi was designed specifically so that people who were not allowed because of the caste system to learn the spiritual teachings of the time, so they could read and learn and understand it. That's the whole reason why the language was designed. And it's written in music. I mean, there's a lot of languages that have been made for communication, right? So we can learn to talk to each other. But this is a language that has only been designed to carry a sound current of music for an elevated purpose. That's what it was born out of. And it's been repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated. So while you're doing something that's strengthening the nervous system, balancing the glands with the breath, then you start to repeat these sounds that from the birth of the sounds has been for an elevated intention. To open up the 10th gate, the 1,000-petaled lotus, and scan for thought forms that are in alignment with the best of the best. When you're depressed, think about it. Have you had a time in your life when you've been depressed and down and not feeling happy with your life? What are you drawing more in of usually? Thoughts like that, right? When you're anxious and you're upset about, or you're angry, and your mind is in that state, what are you bringing more? You don't all of a sudden go, oh, well, I guess I'm not depressed anymore, You start pulling that in. And we've heard this language, like attracts like. So if we can bring ourselves into a state where the body's going through this process of balancing the glands, strengthening the nerves, and you're going, I'm going to keep my mind fixed on and it doesn't have to be Gurmukhi, but that's what I use. It could be anything. You could inhale, true exhale self, or whatever you like. But I think there's something to this, having this birth of elevation and oneness and everybody being connected. And that was the purpose of the language being created. And then you breathe that, inhale, sat, exhale, nam, and you hold your arms like that, and you can go past the point where your thinking mind is trying to take the wheel, trying to take the wheel, trying to take the wheel. There is this experience that you have there of levity, even in the challenge. And what happens is you reveal to yourself how strong you are. You reveal to yourself how infinite you are. You reveal to yourself your ability to stay calm in the face of what appears to be danger. You tap into this vibration or this sound current that is going to elevate you and the world around you. And it works. And you just repeat that as a practice. And you could do, it for 11 minutes. You could do an 11-minute exercise that would help you deal with your mental stuff so that you could open the 10th gate, scan the thought forms for the best of the best, and it would take effect right away, day one, And I haven't experienced anything like that. I do Hatha Yoga. I love it. It's the best thing for me, for health. And I love yogic philosophy, and I love learning about these things, but there's something about using the breath and using the mantra that clears away the mind so that you're no longer dumping your crap into the unconscious mind, which is dumping into the physical body. And then all of a sudden, you start feeling light. And it doesn't take much. It's not like, in Hatha Yoga, I feel like it took me 10 years to go like, I think I know what this is doing. At first, I was like, this feels great. I've just stretched, sweat, lie down, feel amazing, put on good music, feel healthy. I mean, who doesn't want to do that? But I did notice that some of my mental patterns didn't change. And if they did, it took a while, But with this, man, it's incredible how that can work. And anyone can do it. You could sit in a chair. We have a woman who comes to Dharma Temple now who she calls in advance and says, I'm coming, can you set out a chair? And she goes to the Kundalini Yoga practice, and she wrote an email recently saying, this practice changed my life. And she thought before she couldn't go to a yoga class because she thought yoga was stretching. No, yoga is clearing your head so that the body can function properly, so that you can live in alignment with your destiny. And that's what we want for everyone, Imagine a world where people are walking around with a deep understanding of who they are, or like better self-esteem, self-love, you know. Imagine a world like that. Imagine that, you know. And that's why I think if you can, whatever practice it is that connects you, you know, like we use the mantra Waheguru. Waheguru means like to stand in awe of that which brings you from darkness to light. It's not a person. It's not a belief system. It's like, be really real about it. And most, in my experience, like, I don't know that you know right away. That's a hard thing to explain, but it's kind of like the difference between deep listening and listening. We had this conversation the other day about diet with some of the students in AQL, and some people were saying, oh, well, you have to be vegan and you have to be plant-based, and I support that. But the thing that I've learned over time is that, you know, people say, oh, you have to listen to your body and do what's right for your body, and I also support that. But the challenge is how do you know that what you're listening to is your best self, and how do you know if it's conditioning from society, from your parents, and that can go on both sides of the spectrum. Oh, a yogi is supposed to be vegetarian. Oh, you know, a person from the prairies of Canada is supposed to eat meat and potatoes. Oh, yeah. And that conditioning, like we said, those thousands of thought forms. And so how do you know what's really, really great for you if you're not able to really get quiet and see? Because it's not thinking. And that's where, again, this is the thing where it comes in. It's like you take time every day to clear your mind, you'll know. You'll become so aware of who you are, you won't have a question. That's Dharma. You'll be so aware of who you are that things will come up and you'll say, I just have to do that. And people will go, why would you do that? That doesn't make sense. And you won't care. Because you're so aware of your values, you're so aware of who you are, and your values are going to protect you from anybody trying to put their values over top of your values. You see what I'm saying? But in order to do that, you have to clear your mind. Otherwise, there are these thoughts that are there to align you with your purpose, which I connect to through repeating Satnam, Waheguru, or whatever it is that, you know. Sometimes I say this, I give my future to God. Like I'm having some worries about something, the government sends the tax bill or something, you're like, oh shit, how am I going to pay for this? And then the mind starts turning and grabbing in all these thousands of thought forms, right? And then I say to myself, and it works, I give my future to God. It right inside my mind, and it stops. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to pay the bill, and it doesn't mean I'm going to pretend it's not there. You know, that's not what it is. It's I know that the real me has the capacity to do way harder things than pay this bill. And then the whole, well, what are we going to do? Poor me, you know, gone. Well, the only way that I've learned to be able to do that, Kundalini yoga. Repeating always, Waheguru, Waheguru, Waheguru. And I learned this thing from my friend Jaidev, like he said, when I get in the cold shower in the morning, he said, I imagine that I'm stepping into the nectar tank at the Golden Temple. And I step in there and I chant the mantras and I feel the connection to that sacred place where these mantras have been played over the water for hundreds of years. And when I bathe in the cold water, I say to myself, that's where I am. Because I know that I'm beyond time and space. And then it isn't me like, oh, I should take a cold shower because the teacher said, or I should take a cold shower because it's good for my circulation, my body. These things are true. The teacher did say, and it is good for your circulation. But when I step into the cold shower, I step in with the sound current of I'm aligning with the best version of myself, and that's what this is for. Changes the experience. And when I'm doing even when I'm doing asana, I inhale Sat, exhale Nam, inhale Sat, exhale Nam, so that I'm not looking around saying, oh, look at what so-and-so is doing. I wish I could do it like them. And, or I remember when I was 27 and I could do it like, I don't do that. I just breathe in Sat and breathe out Nam. Because they say, like, if you give 10% of your day, 10% of your day, so that's 2.5 hours a day, and you think of the highest, the best version of yourself, however you access that. For me, it's mantra, Satnam, Waheguru. If you spend 2.5 hours a day doing that, 10%, it will take care of the other 90%. It will take care of it. And if you don't do it, like I walk around and think, how do people manage, man? I heard this story about this father who killed his children or something in Alberta recently, and you think people are under so much pressure, and they're under all of these grabbing in thought forms, and they don't know what to do. I've been there, man. I've been in tough times in my life, and I didn't know how to call in my best self. I didn't know how to call in. Every child is born with a sattvic mind, a clear mind. Every child, they talk about a blank slate or something. Every child is born with that. And then karma happens. And the karma is what I'm explaining. All these thought forms influencing. If you're abused by their parents, or even if they're neglected by their parents, they create all these thought forms that makes it really hard for them to show up as their best self. But they're born clear with a purpose. And so the challenge is, how do you get yourself to that state, like a baby who just learned to sit up on their own, where the mind is clear and they're just observing the world? How do you get there? Well, you've got to clear your mind every day. And if you don't clear your mind every day, then you're grabbing on to thousands of thoughts trying to figure out what the hell to do with it. And then let's say that you're one of the lucky ones who's born into a loving household, then you may have a chance to do it without some daily mind cleaning, but I doubt it. And if you were born into a household where your parents did their best, but they neglected you, or they put in all of these belief systems that are not in alignment with your best self, or even worse, were abusive, or there's a lot of addiction in the home, then it's even more imperative, because you're carrying a weight that it's going to be so hard to get free from. And what do you do with a person like that? Do you just tell them to stretch? I don't know about that. There's got to be something that even a child could do. And a child can do Kundalini yoga and it will work. My daughter, she does these Satanama. When she's nervous, she does that. And you don't say to her, like, this is a practice from India that has been passed down. No, you just say, hey, if you're nervous and you feel like you're not safe, try this. And it will work. And if you're actually not safe, stand firm in your power or get out of there, But I think what a great gift to have a practice like this. And that's how it works. The main things are strengthen the nervous system, balance the glandular system, clear the mind, and then create some kind of devotional practice. And the devotional practice, it doesn't necessarily mean devotion to something. It could, You could, if something really inspires you to connect to the love, then that's devotion. So if it's, you love your plants, that's devotion. If you pray to something that appears to be outside of you, that's devotion. Whatever it is, whatever fills your heart with love. So strengthen the nerves, balance the glandular system, clear the mind, connect with love. And that's what the practice does. If you go to a class, that's what they're teaching you, And when your mind is telling you this is nonsense, why am I doing it? Just notice that your mind telling you that may be the tendency that's standing in the way of you experiencing your purpose.